Assuming they have the first overall pick, what legitimate reasons would the Texans have to pass on taking Bryce Young? And before we turn that over to you, I do want to say something really quickly. I'm not in the business of predicting whether or not the Texans should take a quarterback with the first overall pick, because I don't know which of these quarterbacks is actually going to be successful. I'll admit it. I like Bryce Young more than C.J. Stroud. I could be totally wrong on that. Hell, for all we know, we could see Will Levis, the quarterback from Kentucky, be the best quarterback of all the guys coming out in this year's draft class. Here is what I would rather do. I would rather predict what the Texans do come draft day. And I know some of you are going to say, oh, what, screw up the pick like they always do? No. Last year, there were enough tea leaves laid out by Lovie Smith, who I guess had some sort of input into what the Texans did in the draft, that the Texans wanted a cornerback. They had the third overall pick. They had Derek Stingley Jr. I thought they were going to take Derek Stingley Jr., not to pat myself on the back, but let me pat myself on the back. I thought it would happen. It did happen. I'm curious as to what information we can take, and from that information, what we can deduce about what the Texans might do with that number one overall pick. And I don't think it's a lock that they'll draft the quarterback first overall. And it's mainly for one reason. It's height. Nick Caserio was with the New England Patriots for 20 years or so. Here are the heights of all the quarterbacks that played in New England the last 2 decades. Tom Brady, 6'4". Rohan Davey, 6'2". Cliff Kingsbury, 6'3". Matt Castle, 6'4". Kevin O'Connell, 6'5". 2 backup quarterbacks, head coaches in the NFL. Zach Robinson, 6'3". Ryan Mallett, remember him? 6'6". Jimmy G, 6'2". Jacoby Brissett, 6'4". Danny Etling, 6'2". Jared Stidham, 6'3". Mac Jones, 6'3". Bailey Zappi, of all the players that the New England Patriots have drafted at quarterback during the Nick Caserio era, say Caserio was still with New England, he would have been the shortest. Guess what? Caserio wasn't there anymore. How about the other quarterbacks that were on the Patriots roster over the past 20-plus years? Drew Bledsoe, before Tom Brady steps in, 6'5". Damon Heward, 6'3". Vinny Testaverde, 6'5". Matt Gutierrez, 6'4". Brian Hoyer, 6'2". Cam Newton, 6'5". The only exception to all of this is Doug Flutie, who was 40-something years old at 5'10". That's what he's listed as, being the backup quarterback for one season so that he could do a dropkick extra point. Yesterday, I was listening to the bench. They had Mike Lombardi on. Mike Lombardi's been in front offices before, and Lombardi said that if you start to make exceptions for players, where does it end? The Patriots have never made an exception for height when it comes to bringing a quarterback into the building. They have never done it outside of Doug Flutie during the Nick Caserio era. And I think it's pretty sound logic to deduce that they will not take Bryce Young first overall if he is, as listed, 5'10 or 5'11. Forget about the weight side of it on top of it. Right now, I'm telling you, I don't think the Texans will take Bryce Young with the first overall pick. Some of you guys, you short kings in particular, you might be pissed off reading that, hearing that. Or you might be just so quarterback starved that you don't really care about the height. And I think a lot of us are leaning that way right now. Just give me something that's exciting. Did you see this article in the New York Times? It's titled, "There has never been a better time to be short." From where I stand, writes our 5-foot-tall lady writer, at 5 feet even, being tall is widely held fantasy of superiority that long ago should have been retired. It made sense to fawn over height when it facilitated survival. Ages ago, when the necessity of defending oneself cropped up daily, if not hourly, tall people could more easily protect their families and bring home some woolly rhino flank. Today, those who have the stamina to sit in an office chair all day bring home plastic-wrapped meat. You don't need to be tall anymore, argues this 5'0" writer. And she suggests, as a short person, It's hard, but also taller people need to mate with shorter people because you're potentially saving the planet by shrinking the needs of subsequent generations. Bigger people need more food, more waste. Lowering the height minimum for prospective partners on your dating profile is a step toward a greener planet. So dating, maybe you should be into the shorties. Not going to lie, I'm a big fan of shorter women. But we're talking about quarterback in the NFL. This is the one place where we still should be heightsist, no? Fine. Heightsism is bad for the environment, for the world. It shouldn't be at quarterback. It shouldn't. Just think about it. Imagine you are a quarterback. You are 6 feet tall or shorter, and you got an offensive line, a wall in front of you of 6'3", 6'4", 6'5" folks. With, on top of that, some 6'3", 6'4", 6'5" folks rushing you. How many of you guys have been to a concert or to a sporting event, standing room only, and you're not that tall and there's somebody who's really tall in front of you and you can't see a damn thing? Now imagine you have to make a throw 20, 30, 40 yards downfield with that in front of you. Is heightsism really that bad? Just think about it from that perspective. I don't think it is.
Yeah, I generally push back against the kind of established norms of football because we've seen hey, it used to be everyone just ran the West Coast offense because it worked for Joe Montana and Bill Walsh, and it'll work for every crappy quarterback in the league. And now we open things up, and now it's way easier to play quarterback. And everything from receivers to DBs to tight ends, everyone's a little bit more. It's not quite positionless basketball, but there are more Debo Samuels of the world taking handoffs. Who's the guy? 88 Montgomery.
Ty Montgomery.
Yeah.
Cordarrelle Patterson, who has finally been figured out how to be used. Right. So hybrid positions there. Hey.
But quarterback, I feel like is different.
It is different
as far as height.
And the standards have been laxed. It's like people have been reading this New York Times article over the last couple of years. Baker Mayfield went first overall. Johnny Manziel was a first-round pick. It's a little different with Johnny Manziel, but would that have worked out? You have Kyler Murray. And the issues he has, he can't even stay on the field. You have, as far as other smaller quarterbacks, I said Baker Mayfield, didn't I? Baker Mayfield.
Yeah.
Russell Wilson has been the exception to this, but over the last couple of years, you have seen his skills deteriorate as he becomes less mobile and able to escape the pocket. So these are things to consider. I do think we should be heightsist here, just collectively. And it's not to say that I think Bryce Young is going to be a bad player. I don't believe that at all. I don't know. And I would take Bryce Young if I had to pick between C.J. Stroud and Bryce Young. There's a gun to my head. I would take Bryce Young. But if I'm predicting what the Texans will do, I predict they will not take Bryce Young entirely based off of their track record during the Nick Caserio era. The New England Patriots never took a small quarterback. Why is Nick Caserio going to change his stripes after 20 years of being around the most successful organization in the NFL and being a part of building that thing up? I just don't see it happening. Paul Galancho, ESPN 97.5 and 92.5, 713-780-3776 to call in. To text in as well in the HRP listener line. Let's go to Mark. Mark, what's up?
Hey, how you doing?
Yo.
I'm gonna throw a statistic at you.
Okay.
You got the cat from Miami. You got the guy from Baltimore. You got the guy from Philadelphia.
Tua, Hurts, Lamar Jackson. Okay.
Huh?
Yeah, you're mentioning Tua, Tagovailoa, Jalen Hurts, and I'm assuming
exactly.
Lamar Jackson.
What you
right?
got a bunch of 5'11" mobile quarterbacks who the first thing they do when they can't see is they take off running. And what is the longevity of a quarterback that takes off running? Not very long. And the statistics at this present time prove it more so than ever in the history of football. So, and you got another cat from Cleveland that's had 2 major knee injuries in his career. And where are they going to learn? You don't need a real mobile quarterback. What you need is a guy that can see and then a guy that can throw.
I totally disagree. You need to have a guy who can score.
And one other point is the fact that the Texans aren't ready to protect the quarterback.
No, I agree with you there.
You can pick up a used quarterback off the pile anytime that'll suffice for the next year or two until they develop an offensive line. And I'll say one more thing, an offensive scheme that will allow the wide receivers to get open.
Or they can get better wide
receivers. Seem to have that.
But I get what you're saying, Mark. And to clarify a couple of things along the way, Jalen Hurts is 6'1". Lamar Jackson is 6'2". I wouldn't say that those guys are small. Jalen Hurts is also built like a tank. You know, he's not Cam Newton height, but he is a big dude and he runs like a running back. I don't think it's fair to put Hurts in there. But Tua Tagovailoa is another good example. Tua is a little shorter, and Tua is a little slighter, and Tua is not that good of a runner as far as putting into it all those quarterbacks who are a little bit smaller, maybe not working out so well. Lamar Jackson's 6'2". I don't think it's fair to put him in there, and I also think Jackson does a great job of avoiding getting hit, though he is injured at this point in time. Anyway, the problem is, yeah, you can kick the can down the road, build up the offensive line. You don't know that you're going to be back in the same place that you'll be next year, and I know some people have presented, when I've asked this question online, as a legitimate reason to not take Bryce Young. They said, well, Caleb Williams next year is better. He might be, he might not be, and you might not be in that spot to take Caleb Williams next year. And I mean, shoot, how many times have we seen a quarterback that we thought was going to go first overall one year, the next year end up being taken in like the 4th round? Remember Matt Barkley? Barkley was like a top 10 pick. He stays at USC, and he ends up being a 4th round pick.
Spencer Rattler
as well, yeah.
Sam Howell.
Was Spencer Rattler at South Carolina now?
Yeah.
Yeah. Hey, look, South Carolina had a nice finish to the season.
Yeah, but notice who we're not talking at the top of the draft.
Right, that's true. Exactly.
The year before his last year at Oklahoma, we're talking about him as a top 5 pick.
You can't predict things year to year. You can't. Some people on the line are the Twitch line, twitch.tv/ESPN 97.5, are saying, well, what has Nick Caserio done? This isn't about what Nick Caserio has done. I'm trying to predict what they're going to do. Because the should have, would have, could have, like, I'm sorry, that part of the draft conversation, it's such an inexact science. I would love to have strong, concrete takes on it, but I know I'm talking out of my ass on it. I'm just going to be honest with you. Most people who do talk about the NFL draft are talking out of their ass. They are. I'm not going to do that with anyone anymore. I'm of the belief that, hey, like, I would rather just predict what they're going to do and hope that they, with that pick that they make, do the right thing. But I just want to predict based off of their history what they're able to do.
Also, what has Nick Caserio done? Well, his first pick for the Texans was Davis Mills, who's 6'4".
Great point, Sean. Great point.
6'2" without the neck.
He's got a big neck.
If he had a normal neck, it would be 6'1".
713-780-3776 to call into text it too. What is a legitimate reason for passing on Bryce Young? We do have a couple on Twitter and on Facebook that we will get to. Thomas has a thought on quarterbacks. Thomas, what's up?
Hey, Paul. What's going on?
Yo.
I think it's simple as, it's kind of like the call, like, no matter what your major is, you go to certain universities, there's big companies that look at certain universities for, certain degrees. You know, here in Texas, a lot of CPA firms go to LSU, UT, engineering school, and just big engineering schools are A&M. But so my thought process is, okay, so let's look at these schools that these quarterbacks are coming from. And right now, and I hate to say it because I'm an LSU fan, but right now the trending school is Alabama. You got Mac Jones, who's just suffering from a defensive piece of poop calling plays. But you still got Jalen Hurts. Tua's been playing well. That's trending upwards. And I know Justin Fields has been playing well, but I just don't trust the Ohio State system. So I'm going to lend to go Bryce Young, but I could see them going with Kentucky, Will Levis, just as they think they can,
someone's going to talk themselves into Will Levis, 100%, especially because of what Josh Allen has done at the NFL level. And I think I don't think you should always hold a school against a player and appreciate the phone call, Thomas. But I do think that there are certain guys that you're realizing, hey, they're playing with better talent on their program than any other team in the conference. It's one of the reasons I'm a little skeptical about Trevor Lawrence. And I think Lawrence has a pretty bad overthrowing wide receivers problem. But Lawrence, when he was at Clemson, I mean, who was challenging Clemson in the ACC? Ohio State, I'd make the same argument. No one has the horses Ohio State does. Ohio State is the best athletes in that conference by a wide margin. And I do think that is a reason to perhaps look at a player from that university, specifically a quarterback with a side eye. I'd say the same thing about USC, too. USC is always going to have a ton of great skill players around. So maybe that's a thought when it comes to Caleb Williams, some of the people who are wanting to wait for someone like him in next year's draft, which, again, you might not have the first overall pick and the ability to take him in.
My rebuttal to the whole, you don't want an Alabama quarterback because of this. You don't want an Ohio State quarterback, USC quarterback. And it's like, well, Will Levis from Kentucky, name me the great Kentucky quarterback.
Yeah.
None of these schools have – you always are putting in more failures into the NFL than you are successes.
Unless you're like, hey, we're going to do Eastern Illinois.
Hey, yeah,
Tony
right.
Romo, Jimmy Garoppolo.
Or, hey, do you want the Michigan quarterback that threw 2 pick sixes in the CFP semifinal? Because, hey, Brady.
That's true. Guy who was getting benched half the time that he was at Michigan, too, for freaking Drew Henson. To wrap it up, and look, this is going to be on the table the remainder of the hour. There are some people also that are saying, well, you don't want to draft the guy based off of height. Oh, yeah, no doubt. I mean, Brock Osweiler, Jesus. 6'8". Ryan Mallett, 6'6". And I remember those guys seem to be actually debilitated by their throwing motion. There is a just right for everybody, right? A sexual partner. Maybe you like somebody that is right in the middle, not too short, not too tall. I'll be honest, when I go on the dating apps, I'm looking for someone who's generally from 5'2" to 5'7". It's a little taller than 5'7". It's kind of weird to be next to somebody who's wearing heels and is taller than you. Do I have that little self-confidence in myself? I mean, what do you think? Who doesn't? so there's a happy medium, and I think that the Texans, with Nick Caserio running the show, are very unlikely to make an exception for a smaller player. Nothing wrong with the little heightsism when it comes to whoever you have at quarterback. Some comments on the most interactive sports talk show in Houston, twitch.tv/ESPN 97.5, a couple. Battery Chucker said, back in the day, all the college quarterbacks were tall pocket passers, which meant the NFL quarterbacks were also. The high school college game is way different now, so the quarterback prospects are different now as well. True, but let's be honest, high school systems, college systems have also become extremely simplistic. Have pro systems become that way? And a simplistic system is generally going to take advantage of a player's athleticism. An athletic player is going to be able to make the most out of it. Well, what happens when everybody's at about the same athletic level? And then on top of that, you got a 5'10", 185-pound quarterback. Rare Candy, and the caller who called in suggested that, hey, you can have just a tall pocket passer. You disagree that you need a mobile quarterback? You watch Brady his whole career. The game has changed. I think offensive line play has gotten significantly worse, specifically since the last collective bargaining agreement. And I do think that in today's league, generally, you need a quarterback that can escape and extend plays. Now, it helps to have a bigger quarterback who can also shake off defenders. I mean, that's why someone will talk themselves into Will Levis, because Josh Allen and Will Levis do have some similarities. Levis can do a lot of things. He's just played like an absolute bonehead in a lot of important games for Kentucky. Who
is the best, pure pocket passer still in the league? Is it still Brady?
I think it's got to be Brady.
Because, even
Peyton Manning. I mean, Peyton Manning was very similar to Brady in the way that he played too.
Yeah, but he retired
a long time ago.
6 years ago.
Right,
yeah.
Exactly. That's what I mean. There aren't that many. The next evolution.
Even Burrow can he can run for first downs. And he also tore his ACL and was out for a year.
Right. Look, a lot of players have torn their ACLs. It doesn't mean all of a sudden they're not.
Oh yeah, no. I'm saying that as far as the you don't want a mobile quarterback because they get hurt. It's well, how's that help Jimmy Garoppolo?
Yeah, exactly. Garoppolo's got hurt a ton. Look, I think also 2003, 2004 is where they started to move in a different direction. At least the kind of players that they were. Phillip Rivers, pretty good at extending plays. Ben Roethlisberger, amazing at extending plays. One of the best that we've ever seen.
But not mobile.
Not mobile.
Yeah,
but they weren't pocket guys.
Hard to bring down.
You can't just be a pocket guy anymore. That's what Davis Mills is. Davis Mills is a pocket guy. Davis Mills might have been great back in the 90s. Might have been. But with a simplistic offense, running out of the I formation or something like that, I mean, I could see him succeeding then. But now, no, he's got no chance. You got to be able to move. Other reasons, legitimate reasons to pass on Bryce Young. You get a bunch of draft picks. There's an offer you can't refuse. That's a fair one. If you get a massive haul, and to continue to build up the roster, I don't know that anyone's going to be that inclined to trade a haul for the first overall pick, though, with Bryce Young. I think Bryce Young is not the de facto number one. I think he is, for some, very exciting, but not for everybody.
The best chance you have is that Will Levis blows people away at the combine or in workouts, and they fall in love with Will Levis. I think he's the guy that everyone says oh, you don't trade up for Bryce Young, you don't trade up for a 5'10" quarterback. It's well, you could also trade up for Will Levis. That I think that's who is more likely. Someone is more likely to throw all their chips into the middle of the table for Will Levis than they are for Bryce Young.
Oh boy. So, and what you just said, John, is going to happen. Just wait until the NFL Combine.
Yeah.
People are going to be, whatting themselves.
Will Levis, his draft stock is going to go so far up the longer he goes without playing.
Yep, 100%. Oh, boy. Oh, boy. Yeah, it's going to be remember when everyone got excited, had giant pants tents over Johnny Manziel getting hit with a broom at the Combine and or his pro day?
Yeah, his pro day, he did it in full pass.
And Zach Wilson
was
had
awesome.
one crazy throw at his pro day. They're whoa!
That was a great throw.
And when we never learn. We never learn. I've learned. I'm there's no point in having a take on any of this stuff. Stop losing your mind over things that happen in freaking February.
Yeah, unless you go full Mel Kiper, Todd McShay, Lance Zierlein.
Even then.
But they at least have a chance. They at least know what they're looking at.
I'm not even sure.
We don't even know what we're looking at.
You know what? I actually see Lance Zierlein in his office after the show working on this stuff. I don't know that Mel Kiper's still doing it. I don't know that all these guys aren't taking information from other people and just pirating it as their own. I don't know. It's a lot of work.
I forgot who he was talking about, but I just overheard him walking through the hallways, and he started a sentence with, "I was watching some East Carolina tape the other day," and I was like, "Oh my god."
Yeah, I think people who watch wrestling are nerds. How about people who watch stuff for the NFL draft? Some other legitimate reasons to not take Bryce Young. Pass on Young, his health may be at risk behind the offensive line, especially if they trade Tunsil. I don't think they're going to trade Tunsil. That's from Josh and Beaumont. Look, the tackles are going to keep, but I am curious about the interior offensive line with a smaller quarterback. If he's going to have to spend the entirety of his first year in the NFL, scrambling outside the pocket and just getting absolutely bludgeoned as Kenyon Green and whoever the hell else, AJ Can, are getting blown off the ball, is he going to become gun shy? That's something I wonder about. Now, he's never shown that he gets gun shy, but what if all of a sudden, he's just swamped? And then a couple of comments on Twitter. Chris Otto says he's built like a girl, Paulie. That's not nice. What, am I built like a girl? 5'11", 181 pounds. It says on my license I'm 6 feet tall. He's 5'10", $185, reason enough. And Oda109 says, I'm just a baby. Yep, that's fair. One last one is asymmetric risk on twitch.tv/ESPN975 asks, should attractiveness be a part of the draft grade for a quarterback? Depends on what you're going for. You're trying to... No, Sean's laughing. It depends on if you are trying to...
Have sex with your quarterback?
I guess that's... Are there any female owners out there? I don't know. No, it's about... If you're trying to rebrand your team, you want to have some sort of Captain America-looking mother bleeper. You know, you do. You want to have someone like that.
This is getting dangerously close to the scene from Moneyball, where all the scouts get fired.
Oh, yeah.
For no confidence. Why do you say that? Ugly girlfriend.
Roger has a thought on the Texans draft. 713-780-3776. Roger! What's up?
What's going on, guys? Paulie G.
Yo.
Happy health and prosperity for 2023. Okay, so the most obvious reasons why the Texans are going to pass up because of their DNA, because their lineage. I don't know how to say it. Anyway, it's because of who they are. Whether it be Casserly, Rick Smith, Idiot O'Brien, now we got Casario. It's because of what they are. It's such low-hanging fruit. You can't miss it because it pokes you in the freaking eye. It's what they are. They're gonna pass it. Whether the question wasn't whether it was right or wrong pick. Time will always tell that. But they're gonna do it because that's who they are. It's what they do. They're gonna pass on Bryce Young and they're gonna get whoever else. And that's it. That's just how they are. That's how they're built.
I appreciate your honesty, Roger, and the phone call. And if anyone in the Texans organization is listening right now, this is the entire fan base. This is the entire fan base. That is, Roger is the entire fan base in a nutshell. Like, that's how everyone thinks you will screw this up, which I think puts more pressure on you to perhaps take Bryce Young, because not taking Bryce Young and him being good elsewhere might be more terrifying to you than picking somebody other than Bryce Young and him not working out. Like, it's about like what other people will do with it.
It's funny. We've brought up Lance so much this past like 15 minutes, but Lance drew the comparison to them picking Mario Williams over Vince Young and Reggie Bush in
Yeah, I heard
06.
that one. Yeah.
And I was like, huh? Yeah, it might be Will Anderson might be the right pick amongst all these quarterbacks that, we're not sold on any of them. And turns out the Mario Williams pick was the right pick. It was wrong in the moment, right long term.
Yeah, you're right. But
You better be right.
Had Vince Young been in Houston, would it be different? I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, now, do you want me to do my Vince Young, my 9-part,
30 for 30?
9-hour podcast about the Vince Young?
Maybe a slower day, perhaps.
Jeff Fisher set him up to fail.
Jeff Fisher said
He picked Kerry Collins over Vince Young.
He's Cocktail Collins. Come on now. Man could take a lot of drinks. The most interactive sports talk show in Houston. Let's go back to the HRNP listener line. Craig has a thought at 713-780-3776. Craig, what's going on?
Hey, boss, how are you?
Doing good.
Earlier, you made the reference about Bryce Young standing behind going to a concert, people that are 5 or 6 inches taller than you. I think the only difference is he's not trying to throw the football standing directly behind somebody that's 6 inches. If you're taking that draft pick, you start making your snaps out of the shotgun instead of under center. Give him that much more opportunity to see over the people, see what's going on, read the field, so he's got that advantage. Then if the pocket does break down, he's going to be a smaller guy. He's going to be able to hide behind his offensive lineman, shift in and out of trouble, and then break outside the field.
Very good points, and I think that's why it's so critical that the Texans nail what they do with their offensive coordinator. You're going to have to find somebody who can make the most out of Bryce Young, who will largely be playing out of the shotgun, and somehow figure out how to have a ground game that can operate outside of the shotgun as well, which is a lot easier said than done. It can be done, but, the offensive ground games that we have seen really take off over the last couple of years are the ones that are coming out of the Kyle Shanahan tree, and that one does seem to involve a lot more with the quarterback right behind the line of scrimmage. But a good thought, Craig. I think that's a fair counterpoint. And look, I'm not ruling out that the Texans should take Bryce Young. I'm just saying I don't think they will, just based off of Nick Caserio's draft record with the New England Patriots and with the Houston Texans and Davis Mills.